Okay, so hello and
Excuse me, sir.
yeah.
Sir, could you send me the link of the registration, because my colleagues are asking.
So just share that one that WhatsApp I send you know that one is for that. You can share that.
Okay.
Okay, so it's time to start as the participants will come and because already Dr. Adil Rasool, who is the speaker and guest for today session, is available. So let me, being a host and being the moderator of this session, let me first introduce Dr. Adil Rasool, who is the, you can say as the main speaker or the key speaker for this particular first session, and he is going to tell you what are the contents he is going to explain for today's session. And before starting this session, let me introduce Dr. Adil Rasool. First of all, on the behalf of the management strategy, I, Dr. Sarfraz Karim, thank Dr. Adil Rasool for accepting this invitation as a speaker from his busy schedule. About Dr. Adil Rasool, he is a PhD in management science from India. He has the 6 year of teaching and research experience. Currently, he is associated with Bakhtar University, Kabul, and he is doing his job and all these research related work from online basis nowadays. He has 20 research paper published in various reputed journal, international reputed journal, and he has a great command over both qualitative and quantitative research. His area of research and teaching are marketing management, strategic management, e-commerce, and leadership. He is also associated with various workshop, seminar, symposium at different mode, like online mode, what we are doing today, like physical mode, traditional mode, and also in the hybrid mode. So today we are going to take his work experience in our this first session. So before starting and before handing over to Dr. Adil Rasool, let me tell my participants. So whatever is coming to your mind during this session, please keep patience. And if you think that you may forget your questions, you may write down that one. I will take all the questions at the end of the session. And I hope you will enjoy this session, and recording is also available. So on basis of request, we will provide to them. Now over to Dr. Adil Rasool. Yes, sir.
Hello. Good morning to all of you. This is Dr. Adil Rasool. Just give me a moment so that I will share my screen, and then I will definitely start my introduction as well as today's lecture. Okay. Just give me a moment.
Yeah, yes, no issue.
Okay, sir. I think my slides were visible. Not now.
Not now.
Not now. Can you please confirm?
Not now, sir. Now now it is visible, sir.
Okay.
But sir, somebody is saying that your voice is echoing. For me, the voice is coming clearly. May I ask to confirm about the voice? Because for me,
Please.
yeah, voice is audible. Voice is audible.
Okay. But maybe there will be some problem sometime when I'm going to share my slides. At that time, maybe I will not be visible.
No issue, sir. Now you can share your slides.
Okay, sure. Okay, let me introduce myself. This is Dr. Adil Rasool, currently associated with Bakhtar University as an assistant professor, and I have already worked with as research director there. Okay, and currently I'm teaching online because you know the situation in Afghanistan, and so presently I'm in India, and Dr. Sarfaz Kareem was my colleague there maybe 2 years back. So I was also interested to deliver this research lecture to the students. So we together decided, and I'm here. So with your permission, let me start. Okay, because it is already 10 past 11. So let me start. As the management strategy has given me the initials, what we can say, the concepts of research. So I decided to discuss today what actually the research is, then what are the purposes of research or objectives of research for a researcher, then reason or motivation in research, what are the reasons and motivations for a researcher to do a research, then research philosophy and design. Particularly we will focus on Saunders research onion, which has been developed in 2007. This research onion includes 6 levels because we have to peel out an onion. So there are 6 layers in this onion. So the first one will be research philosophy. Maybe you all are aware about these things, so we are going to revise for you guys. The first layer will be research onion. The second will be the research approach. Third one will be research strategy. Then we will continue with the fourth one, research choice. The fifth one will be research time horizon, and the last one will be techniques and procedures. Actually, the research onion is focusing on what we can say, and the research process, the general research process. If we will match our research onion with the general research process, it will definitely help researchers and scholars to design your research map particularly. And last, we will also discuss the variables. We will also discuss some measurement skills as well. Okay, so without wasting your time, let us start with the basic, that is research. As you know, the research is a scientific and a systematic search for something. For something means that the problem that you have identified. The problem you have identified, definitely there will be a systematic research. Systematic word here we are using because you cannot go from first step to fourth step directly. You have to follow a systematic way to approach a certain or specific problem. That is why we call it as a scientific and a systematic research. In fact, the research is an art of scientific investigation. Again, the word scientific is there. Scientific, we use the word because we have to prove each and every point with reasons and logics. When you don't have any logic to prove anything, you cannot use the word scientific. So that is why we call it as a scientific investigation, because every point, every step, you have to move from one step to another step. You have to complete the first step with logics and reasons. If you are doing something, if you are proving something that I applied this method, so there should be some logic, there should be some reason, then you can move to the next step. Or we can say This research is a systematic effort to gain new knowledge. As I know that research includes sometimes it includes discovery, sometimes it includes invention. Okay, so we call it as a new knowledge as well. So it is a systematic effort. You have to put the efforts to gain new knowledge. Or some people consider research as a movement from known to unknown. From known to unknown. Why? Because right now you know everything. Okay, now you are moving towards the problem that is unknown to you. So you are entering in that problem, and then you want to solve that problem. You want to find out the solution for that problem. So that is why Redman and Mori mention it as it is a movement from known to unknown. Or some other researchers like we can say Woody mentioned this research as it is defining and redefining problems, formulating hypotheses, collecting, organizing, or evaluating data, making deduction on and reaching to the conclusion. So this entire process, we call it as a research. And one more thing, it can be searched directly. Why it is research? Re means the process is continuously. It does not mean that it has been done. For example, one person has completed a research and it is done. Now we are not going to do the research again. No, as you know, the research is like a wheel. It is moving. It is moving. That is why we call it as a research. Or we can say, and in other words, we can say the research is a systematic method which includes formulating hypothesis, developing hypothesis, collecting data, analyzing those facts and data, and reaching conclusion. When you are reaching conclusion, the conclusion will be either in the form of solution towards certain problem, or it will in certain generalization for some theoretical framework or for some theoretical formulation. Your research can focus on a specific problem, or your research will be certain generalization for some theoretical formulations. Okay, so this is the thing that we have already discussed. Redman and Mori define research as a systematic effort to gain new knowledge. To gain new knowledge. As I told you that we can go and do research for gaining new knowledge, or from known to unknown. Because right now you think that we know everything. I know everything. But when we are under identifying a problem, that means we don't know anything about this problem. So now we are moving from known to unknown to try to find out the solution for that unknown problem. Purpose and objectives of the research. Those researchers who decided to go for the research, what will be their purpose? The purpose of the research is to discover answer to the question. As I told you, that you have a problem and you want to find out the solution for that problem. So definitely in a research, you have a research question and you want to find out the solution answer for those questions through the application of scientific procedure. Again, I'm telling that we have to go for a scientific procedure. Why? Because you have to prove each and everything. For example, I will give a little example. For example, in a research process, we have the sampling procedure and sampling methods. For example, you are selecting convenience sampling method or stratified sampling method. Why this sampling method? So you have to give a logic. You have to give the reason. That is why we call it a scientific procedure. You have to move from one point to another point by proving with reasons and logics. Aim of the researcher is to find out the truth which is hidden and which has not been discovered yet. Definitely, as I told you, that there is something that is hidden and people are not aware about this. So now you are entering in that area. You want to what we can say, discover that hidden thing. What is that hidden thing? That hidden thing is the solution for some problem. So that will be also your objective, your purpose. Though each research study has its own specific purpose. Maybe one researcher is focusing on one area, so that is having one specific purpose. The other researcher is focusing on other purposes, other areas, so they may have their own purpose. That is why each and everyone is having own purpose. Or we can say, to gain the familiarity with or to achieve new insights. That can also be your, what we can say, objective. To represent accurately the characteristic of a particular individual or situation or a group. For example, your research is focusing on a particular group. So what you want to do, you want to highlight, you want to represent the characteristics of that individual or that group. So that can also be your purpose or objective of your research. Or we can say to determine whether something occurs or with it is associated, because you want to determine the frequency. For example, you want to check the number of the things that is happening. That can be also your objective. That can be also your purpose of your research. Or your purpose can be to test the hypothesis, to find out the causal relationship between the variables. That can also be, for example, there are different variables. If I will go, maybe you guys are from different areas. For example, if I will give the example of the management, for example, demand and supply. For example, price and demand. If the price of the object is increasing, demand is decreasing. So you want to test this hypothesis. You want to test this relationship between variables. That can also be the objective of your research. Dr. Sarfraz.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Is it going clear?
Yeah, it's going in the right way, sir. If there is anything, I will tell you.
Okay, sir. Let us move to the next one. The reason. What are the main reason why researchers are going for the research, or what motivates the researchers to go for the research? Some people, some persons, some researchers have desire to face challenges in solving the unsolved problems. As you know, the research is a challenging job. Maybe some people, what we can say, they love to face challenges in solving the unsolved problem. Concern with practical problem initiates research. Definitely, that whenever you have a desire, always you have a will to face the challenges. So the research is one of the best challenge for you. So that is why some people go for the research. Okay, desire to get intellectual joy of doing some creative work. Definitely, there are some people, they want to do some creative work. So when you are fond of the creativity, so definitely the research is one of the best reason for you to go and do the creativity. Desire to be a service to the society. For example, there are some people, they want to serve the society. By doing the research, you can innovate new things, you can invent new things, you can discover new things, you can find out solution for the new things. So that can also be the motivation for you to do a research. Desire, one of the basic thing for the students is that desire to get a research degree. That can also be a reason for doing research. For example, you are doing a master degree, you are doing what we can say any other degree. There is a portion, there is a part included in your curriculum that your dissertation, your thesis, your monograph is there. So it is part of your curriculum. So without this, you cannot complete your degree. So that can also be the reason for the students to conduct a research. You don't have desire to face the challenge. Okay, leave. You don't have any intellectual joy of doing creative work. Okay, leave it. You don't want to serve the society. Okay, but still there is one reason for doing research for you is to get a research degree. You want to complete a degree. So to complete a degree, there is the requirement of doing a small research. So that is why you are involved in the research. Or desire to get respectability. Someone is doing research to get the respect in the society. That can also be research. Sorry, that can also be the reason. That can also be the reason for motivating you to do the research. Okay, many more factors such as what we can say the directions from the government, because you know that the government organizations are doing research. They have directions from the government, otherwise they don't have any interest in doing the research, but they have the directions from the government, so they are going and doing the research. That can also be the reason. Employee condition, for example, you have the employee conditions are weak, so they are doing research for their development. There are many other things, many new things. You have curiosity for getting new things. Or as I told you, desire to understand causal relationship as well. That can also be the reason for doing the research. Okay, let us move to the next one: research philosophy and design. Or we can say we are going to discuss the Saunders research onion, which has been developed in 2007. Before moving to this part, let me give you one overview of research process actually, because this Saunders research onion is too, what we can say, is giving us indication towards the research process. The general research process, if we will discuss, it involves identifying the problem, okay, that everyone knows, then doing the literature review to understand the things about the problem, okay, then moving to the next part, develop the objectives or framework, or we can say the hypothesis, okay, then moving to the next part, data collection or developing the questionnaire, data collection method, identify the data collection method, sampling techniques, sample size, okay, and then finally go and test the hypothesis with appropriate statistical tools, and finally go for the conclusion and give recommendation based on your findings and results. That is the general, what we can say, research process. The same research process has been defined now by Saunders. Okay, so you have to, on one side you have to keep this general research process in your mind, and on the other side we will understand the same research process with the help of this research onion. Okay, we can say simply that it provides an effective progression through which research methodology can be developed. This research onion, as I told you in the beginning, onion has different layers. If you are learning about the research skills, if you are learning about the research methodologies, you have heard the term about this research onion. And most importantly, which has been developed by the Saunders et al. In 2007. What actually it is its usefulness lies in its adaptability for almost any type of research methodology and can be used in variety of contexts. This Saunders noted that while using research onion, one has to go from outer layer to the inner layer. For example, we have different layers of this onion. Okay, so if you want to apply this, you have to go from outer layer to the inner layer. Each layer is having different approaches. Each layer is having different methods. Each layer is having different strategies. So you have to identify your strategy and then move to the next level. Or rather, I can say like this, for example, there are 6, what we can say, six rooms. Okay, for every room, you have different doors to enter. But when you are in the first layer, there are different rooms. So for example, in the first layer, there are different, what I can say, different doors. Okay, first door, second door, third door, fourth door, and fifth door, for example. So you entered in the first door. While you are entering in the first door, this first door is giving you indication that in the second layer, you have to enter in which door. Please try to understand. In the first layer, if you have 6 doors and you are thinking that, okay, I am my topic, my problem is telling me to enter in the door number 2nd. While entering in the door number 2nd, this door is giving you an indication that in the second layer, there are again, for example, 5 doors. This layer is telling you that which door is specific for you to enter in the second layer. Similarly, when you are entering in that specific door in the second layer, that door itself is giving you information that when you are going and entering in the third layer, from third layer to the fourth layer, you have to go for this specific door. Specific door means this specific method you have to apply. One layer is linked with another layer. One layer is having different methodologies, different strategies. For example, you choose the one strategy. That strategy itself is telling you that when you are going to the next layer, which strategy you have to adopt. Okay, for example, when you are viewing from the outside, each layer of the onion describes more detailed stage of research process. As it has been mentioned by the Sonder, that when you are going from the outside, when you are viewing, when you are looking at from the outside, every layer of the onion describes a more detailed stage of the research process. Okay, this Sonder research describes different decisions you will need to make when developing a research methodology. For example, different decisions, as I told you, different dose. There are different decisions you have to take on each and every layer, whether that is for your dissertation or it is for your thesis or any other formal research project. Every layer is telling you, is giving you different what we can say decisions, and you have to identify that which decision, which strategy is appropriate for my research. But once you clear the first layer will help you to understand the second layer. It will be easy for you to take the decision in the second layer. The second layer will help you to take the decision in the third layer. Similarly, you will peel the onion and you will enter in the middle. In the middle, that means you will complete your research process. Or we can say, for a goal to be achieved, the right step must be taken. Because as you know that in our research, we have a goal, we have an objective. To achieve that, okay, the research, this applies in research, this covers these 6 steps. What are those 6 steps? The Saunders research onion includes these 6 layers. The first layer is research philosophy. The second layer is research approach. The third layer is research strategies. Fourth one is research choice. Fifth one will be the time horizon. And the last one will be techniques and procedures. These are the 6 layers of the research onion. We have to peel these 6 layers. Okay, without taking your more time, let us peel the first one. Okay, in the first one, we call it as a research philosophy. Okay, this philosophy can differ on goals of research, or we can say on the best way that might be used to achieve the goals. These are not necessarily different, but the choice of research philosophy is defined by the type of knowledge being investigated in this research project. Simply, we are here focusing on the nature of the reality being investigated, because we are investigating the nature of the reality in this philosophy, the base of the research. We can understand this research philosophy by describing either the ontological or epistemological point of view, because it is having 2 philosophies, so that we can understand it. One is known as ontology and another one is known as epistemology. Okay, let us understand what actually these ontology and epistemology is, so that we can understand easily the research philosophy. Ontology, as I mentioned here, is what and how of what we know. In other words, what is the nature of reality and what are we really able to know and understand. In simple words, we can say, we can understand ontology, how we view the world. How we view the world. In simple words. Just 1 second. Okay, in simple words, we can say how we as a researcher views the world. What constitutes the reality and how can we understand its existence? It describes the nature of the reality simply. What comes to the mind when conducting a research? Or we can say, what relational impact does it possess on society and the surroundings? Ontology is more or less the study of reality. In simple words, we can say the difference between reality and how you perceive the reality. how you perceive the reality. That is the ontological, the philosophy. Or we can say, make it more clear, it helps us want to know how reality actually is. Reality means the things that is already existing in the world, how it is, and how it affects on your environment or people living in that environment. Or we can say ontology differentiates the actually reality and how one sees the reality, because there are different ways to define and see, to explain the reality that is existing. That is what ontology is telling us. For example, does reality exist as a single objective thing, or is it different for each person? That is what ontology is. It is not what we can say same for all. There will be different, the reality is different for different person. It looks little bit, what we can say, undigestible. Let us move to the next part so that it will be easy for understanding. The second philosophy is epistemology. On the other hand, is how we can obtain knowledge and come to understand things. Please try to understand what is what we can say, the ontology, how we view the world. Please remember this, how we view the world. And on the other hand, we have epistemology, how we should investigate the world. Please try to understand. Ontology means how we view the world, and epistemology means how we should investigate the world. Understand? For example, what constitutes valid knowledge and how can we obtain it? The valid knowledge is there, how we are going to obtain it. Epistemology is mostly used in scientific research, and likely because it helps us in finding the information that you can prove without doubt. Without doubt means because you are doing a scientific research, at the time you are doing reasons and logics, all the things. So that is why there will be no doubt, because you are proving each and everything. These things will be more clear when we will move to the next part, because there are so many research philosophies under this epistemology and what we can say, the ontology. What are the main what we can say, the research philosophies? These are, because those things will be clear. We have positivism research philosophy, we have interpretism, this research philosophy, and pragmatism. These are not only the research philosophy. Please try to understand. These certainly are not the only research philosophy, but they are very common and provide a good starting point for understanding the layers of this philosophy. Because as I told you, this is the first layer of the research onion, so we call it as the starting point. This is the base of your research, so you have to identify the base of the research. So let us understand whether our research is existing in positivism or interpretivism or pragmatism, so that we can easily understand ontology and epistemology. Dr. Sarfraz.
Yes, Dr. Adil.
Okay, am I audible? Is
Yeah,
it visible?
Yes. Everything is going on the right way.
Okay. Let us go to the first one, the positivism, or sometimes we call it as positivist. Doesn't matter. In some books you will find positivist, in some books you will find it by the name of positivism. It is simple. It is a realist. The positivist is a realist. There is something out that can be measured based on absolute law and absolute truth. Simple. What has been proved previously by the science and by the existence, we are focusing. If your research is focusing on those things, then you will claim that my research philosophy is positivism. Positivist research takes the view that knowledge exists outside of what is being studied. What we are studying, it is already done. Now here we are only proving whether it is yes or no. Simple. Positivism is philosophical theory stating that certain positive knowledge is based on natural phenomena and their properties and relations. That I told you, that something is already existed there. Now we are going to do research on those things. That is called positivism. What is being studied can only be done so objectively, or we can say it cannot include opinion and personal viewpoint. Researcher cannot include any personal views, because we are dealing with the absolute law. That means the things have already been done there and we are doing research on them. We are just proving whether it is yes or no, or there is no meaning, they are meaningless. Simply, we are not adding anything. We are not, what we can say, researcher is not getting involved in positivism research. Positivism states that there is only one reality, that is all meaning is consistent between subjects. Or we can say, in the positivist view, knowledge can only be acquired through empirical research, or which is based on measurement and observation. We as a positivist research, we just observe things and we give the results. We are not adding anything. We are not giving our own viewpoints. Being as a researcher, we can simply say this: it is a scientific and deductive method. It is a deductive method. Why? Because the things have already been there and we are working on them. The thing, when things are already there, that means it is a deductive method. So when your research is a deductive method, that means it is going towards the positivism research philosophy. It postulates theories that the researcher test empirically. There is already existing theories and researcher is testing them empirically. That is called positivism. Or we can say for a positivist researcher, knowledge can only be true, false, or meaningless. That is, I told you, we are doing research, we are telling whether it is true, whether it is false, or sometimes it is meaningless. We are not adding anything from our side. That is why I told you, in a positivism, the researcher cannot give their own views and their own what we can say, the suggestions and other things. So when you cannot give all these things, so you have to identify. Being a researcher, you have to identify that my research problem is either positivism or something else. Something else means we are going to move to the next philosophies as well. So we can say simply, all knowledge is viewed as a posterior knowledge that is not reliant on human reasoning. You cannot give any reasoning here, but instead is gained from the research. Simply, here in the positivism, being a positivist researcher, you cannot give any reasoning here. As I told you, simply true or false, you can tell us. This is the Newton law, and you apply this. It is true or false, simple. You cannot go and you cannot update, you cannot give your own comments on these laws. So when your research is dealing with such points, we call it as a positivism research philosophy. Okay, so this is one end of this spectrum. Let us go to the next, that is interpretivism. Okay, I will add one point here. For better understanding, you just remember that positivism is a scientist and interpretivism is a detective. That is the difference between them. Positivist is a scientist and interpretivist is a detective. Now you can understand the difference between a scientist and a detective. If you are doing something that's doing because they are checking the things, the reality and all those things. For example, you are not touching the things, you are not adding things. That is the only difference between the small difference, the scientist and the detective. Here in the interpretivism, it is also known as post-positivism or post-empiricalism. Okay, what does it mean here? Here it is doing research, but here you are making the amendments. Here researcher makes the amendments, but in positivism, researcher cannot make the amendments. It is a critical realist. You are making critics, you are criticizing the things. When you are criticizing things, definitely you are modifying, you are adjusting, you are making some improvement in the positivism. As a human being, researcher's presence can influence what he or she want to measure. Simply here in this interpretivism, researcher makes influence. Researcher gives his own opinions. But in the positivism, researcher cannot give own opinion. Researcher can go for yes and no, prove or disprove things. Or we can say interpretivism focuses on the influence that social and cultural factors have some impact on the individual. Researcher plays an active role in the study in interpretivism, but not in the positivism. It is necessary to draw a holistic view of participants and their actions, thoughts, and meaning, because we are focusing on someone. So it is very, very, very necessary, very important to draw the holistic view of that thing. Or we can say why and how somebody feels or behaves cannot be achieved through the analysis of numbers. By numbers, we cannot give the things that how they are behaving, how they are feeling. Instead, it requires an in-depth assessment of words, actions, and behavior. That is what interpretivism is focusing on. We cannot give by numbers. We have to go for in-depth assessment of their words and actions. This interpretive researcher believes that reality and the individual who is observing this, they are two different things. This is because a person's view of the world are linked to their life experience. Here, in the interpretivism, the researcher's experience matters. For example, let us take my example. I am a teacher, okay, and I have studied in India, for example, okay. So, having been educated in India, I have perception that lessons should be taught based on my personal experience. So I will teach, I will deliver the lectures on my own experience. Oh, this would likely be very different for someone who was educated in different environment. For example, in out of the India, or for example, in a rural part of the India. So definitely they have their own experience, so there will be difference. There will be difference. So that is what it is, interpretivism. If you want to make difference in the research, you want to give your own point of view in your research, that research falls in interpretivism research philosophy. Moving to the next one, the pragmatism. We can say like this, it is a mixture. Sometimes we need mixture of both. For example, positivism is focusing on, for example, we can say quantitative. For example, the interpreters are focusing on qualitative. So pragmatism, there is some research, they focus on both qualitative and quantitative. For example, if I will tell you the pragmatism is what we can say deductive, and the interpretivists are inductive. So pragmatism can be inductive or deductive. We can talk like this. Okay, pragmatism research philosophy accepts concepts to be relevant only if they support action. Here, it depends on the action. Doesn't matter the reasons, the theories, the concepts are telling something. No, if they support the action, if they support the current situation, we will take decision accordingly. That is called pragmatism. The main aim of this pragmatism is approach research from practical point of view. Simply, the current thing, the current situation, what current situation is telling us, and we will take decision accordingly. That is called pragmatism. Leave the theories, leave other things. Let us give the example of the trolley problem. I hope you guys are all aware about the trolley problem. What was the trolley problem? The trolley problem was like this. For example, on one side you have 5 members, and on the other side you have 1 member. Okay, if you will move on this, side, 5 members will be killed. If you will move on the other side, only 1 member will be killed. So now you have to take the decision whether you are going to save 5 members or you are going to save 1 member. So this is in psychological subjects, we have these types of situations. So in such situation, it is not easy, because one can easily understand, okay, let us save 5, let us kill 1. But on the other side, it is not, nobody gives you permission to kill a person. Please try to understand. In some situations, you have to take decision at that point. Such situations are known as pragmatic situation. Such situations are known as pragmatism. It recognizes that there are different ways of interpreting the world. Simply, Pragmatism is telling you that there are different ways of interpreting the world and undertaking the research. There is not a single point of view can give the entire picture, and there may be multiple realities. There may be multiple realities. That is what pragmatism is telling us. For example, positivism and interpretivism are extremely mutual, what we can say, the models about the nature and source of knowledge. For example, positivism is focusing on nature of knowledge, and what we can say, interpretivism is focusing on source of knowledge. Many topics, many research topics fall broadly within these two main, what we can say, models or paradigms. At the same time, there is sometimes need for seasoned researchers to modify their philosophical assumptions over the time and move to the new positions of the field. This modified philosophical assumption are adopted by pragmatic researchers. For example, we can say, what we can say, a pragmatic can come both positivist and interpretive position within the scope of single research according to the nature of the question. As I told you, the pragmatism is the mixture of both positivism and interpretivism, and coming up with one single research methodology. Okay, I hope things are clear because we have less time and I am running short of time. Let us move to the next level. The next level, for example, let me what we can say, recap the things of the first level. You have to identify whether your research topic is focusing on positivism, law of nature simply, whether it is focusing on interpretivism, where you can give some other things, where you can give your own viewpoints, or pragmatism, it is mixture of both things. Okay, so this is the first layer. Once it is done, for example, whether your research is inductive or deductive, okay, so all these things will be there. You have to decide all these things, and then we will move to the next part, that is research philosophy. Sorry, research approach. The first one is philosophy, the second one is approach. Before moving to this, we can say positivism is deductive, interpretivism is inductive, or and pragmatism is either inductive or deductive. We cannot go like this. Or we can, if we will check the ontology of positivism, it is objective, and for interpretivism, it will be subjective. Or if we will go for quantitative and qualitative, so positivism will focus on quantitative, and interpretivism will focus on qualitative, and pragmatism will be either qualitative or quantitative. So let us go for the research onion's next layer, which is known as research approach. Okay, it is important to clearly identify your research approach, as it will inform the decisions the researcher take in terms of data collection and analysis in your study. Simply here we have deductive and inductive are two terms that the second layer of the research onion includes, whether your research is focusing on deductive or inductive. Here, the previous layer of the onion has an effect on this one, so it is important to know the researcher aim and its limitation. So let us move directly. There are two approaches. One is known as deductive research approach, and the second one is known as inductive research approach. So let us focus on the first one. The deductive approach develops the hypothesis and hypothesis, SIS and SES. SIS is singular and SES is plural. That is all. Upon a pre-existing theories, and then formulates the research approach to test it. The Silverman has mentioned that. Simply, the deductive approach is testing pre-existing theories. As I already told you in the positivism, that when your research is focusing on something that is already existing, it is known as positivism. So here deductive approach is also telling us that, for example, you have a theory and you are applying that theory in your research. So that is deductive approach, because you are applying something that is already existed. You are testing those things. So this type of approach is known as deductive approach. I hope these things will be clear. Deductive approach begins with a theory and aims to build on it or test it through the research. As already mentioned, you are using already existing theory and you are testing that theory. That is called deductive approach. Deductive approach can be considered particularly suited to the positivism approach. As I told you, positivism is also focusing on this, which permits the formulation of hypothesis and statistically testing the expected results to be accepted level of probability. It is, if we can say, the development from general to a particular. The general theory and knowledge base is first established, and the specific knowledge gained from the research process is then tested against it. Kothari has mentioned these things, that it is a development from general to particular. Why general? Because the things are already existing there. So from general, we are moving to a particular situation. We are applying that concept to a particular area. We are applying that concept to a particular situation, and we are testing the things. That is called deductive approach. Okay, let us move to the inductive. Inductive is the opposite of the deductive. In inductive approach allows a researcher to create a theory. You have to build a theory here. There is nothing existing before. Here you have to create a theory rather than adopt a pre-existing theory as we have done in the deductive. In the deductive approach, the things are already existing and you are applying those things and testing for a particular situation. But here in inductive, you have to create a new theory. The inductive approach is characterized as move from specific to general. What was the deductive? Deductive was from general to a specific. Here, we are focusing on specific and moving towards the general things. Or we can say there is no framework that initially informs the data collection, and the research focus can thus be informed after data has been collected. So in the deductive, we have a framework already existing. So we are adopting those frameworks and we are conducting our research. That is not present here in the inductive method. It is something new. When you are doing something new, that is called inductive things. The method is commonly used for qualitative research. The data that can be examined for pattern between respondents or inductive approach, generating theories from research. As I told you here, in the inductive, you have to generate new theories. In the deductive, you have to use existing one. As for conducting your research as a foundation. It's usually what we can say it is focusing on qualitative data, while what quantitative research tends to reflect a deductive approach. Or we can say the positivist philosophy. So to recap all these things, two research approaches are inductive and deductive. To decide the right approach for your study, you need to assess the type of research you are aim to conduct, because your research objectives, your research hypothesis will also decide which type of this approach you are going to adopt. You have to ask yourself whether your research will build on something that exists. If it is like this, then you have to go for the deductive, or whether you will be investigating something that cannot be necessarily be rooted in previous research. When you have no roots for your research, that means there is no existing things. That means you are doing something new. So then you have to go for inductive approach. Okay, let us move to the next one. The third layer of this Saunders research onion is the research strategies. So this research strategy describes how the researchers intend to carry out the work to move further. The strategy can include a number of different approaches. What are those different approaches? Whether it is experimental research, case study, survey, these grounded theories, the ethnography, or archival. These are the 6 strategies in the research, and you have to opt one, because you have to link these research strategies with the research approach, and then link the research approach back towards the research philosophies. So let us go and discuss one by one all these things. Experimental research, what I can say, it refers to the strategy of creating the research process that examines the results of an experiment against expected result. It can be used in all areas of research and usually involves the coordination of relatively limited number of factors. Here only, in experimental research, we use different factors. One factor is having effect on the other factor. That is all. For example, experimental research involves manipulating one variable to observe the changes in another variable. For example, if you are going to change the independent variable, what will be the effect on the dependent variable? That is what experimental research is focusing on. or we can say in other words, to assess the relationship between variables. Such types of researches are known as experimental research. This research strategy follows the principles of scientific method, or we can say it is conducted within a controlled environment or setting. Or for example, we can sometimes also what we can say conduct in a laboratory, because we have here control environment. We have control on all the variables. Now, then we will make changes in one variable in order to identify the changes in the other variable. So such researchers are known as experimental research. This research aims to test existing theories. Please try to understand existing theories. That means deductive approach. That means they are deductive in nature. Okay, it is also linked with the positivism research philosophy, as it assumes that knowledge can only be stated objectively and in isolation from external factors. Understand? So we can say the experimental factors are experimental research are focusing on deductive and positivism theory. Similarly, let us move to the next one, the survey. You can, what we can say is the survey strategies of the Researchonian is often linked with the deductive. Again, this is also linked with the deductive approach. Deductive approach means it is using already existing things in one of the finest and economical research strategies. It is using quantitative research and involves sampling things. We are going to discuss all these things, and they are focusing on the population. Okay, what we can see there is the survey strategy is mostly used to observe contributing variables among different data. It permits what we can say the collection of large data that will be used to answer the research questions. Here we are also focusing on the data collection, and based on those data collection, we analyze the information in order when you have some research questions in your study, you are focusing on the survey. When you are conducting a survey, that means you are also focusing on a deductive approach. When you are also focusing on the deductive approach, that means you are using already existing theories and concepts. Then similarly, we have the next part in our research strategies that is called case study. Sometimes we have a case study in our research. Okay, so what is this case study? It is an in-depth study of a single subject or person or a group or an institute. In this type of research, the subject is analyzed to gain an in-depth understanding of issues in a real setting. For example, we are just focusing on the same organization or group of people. The objective of this case study is to gain in-depth understanding within the context of the study, because you are conducting a study and you are going inside one organization, inside what we can say a group of people, where we are focusing the more in depth understanding of that organization. This form of research is effective, what we can say in financial research, such as comparing the experiences of two companies. When we are having a comparative study, at that time we are going for the case study, isn't it? Because we are comparing the effect of investment in different contexts of one or two organization. So in this type, we call it as a case study. It is important also when conducting a case study, you as a researcher, you need to take the social context and culture into account of that organization, which means that this type of research is more often than not qualitative in nature and tend to be inductive. Case study, when it is more focusing on qualitative nature, because when you are focusing on the behavioral research, then we are going to focus on one organization. So it is also going to be like an inductive research. When it is inductive research, then it will go towards the what we can say interpretivism research philosophy. Then we will move to the next one, that is grounded theory. Grounded theory is all about letting the data speak for itself. What data is telling us, we are focusing on that one. Grounded theory, you let the data inform the development of new theories. Simple. You are focusing on innovative things. You are developing new models. You are developing new framework. Such type of what we can say the researches are known as grounded theory. If we will go to the name, the theory you develop is grounded in the data. So grounded theory is therefore very useful for the research in to the issues that are completely new and under researched. When you are focusing on new things, so definitely it will be a qualitative, okay, or sometimes it can be quantitative as well, but it will more focusing on inductive approach because you are developing a new theory and new model. So it is going to be inductive approach. Then we can leave the inductive approach with the other things. Without wasting your time, let us move to the next one. That is anthropography. What do you mean by anthropography? The objective with anthropography is to capture the subjective experience of the participant, to see the world through their eyes. We are observing a group of people. It is observation. Are you getting my point? For example, you want to explore the behavior, you want to explore the language, beliefs of a what we can say isolated tribe. So ethnography could also allows you to develop a complex, complete description of social behavior of group by immersing yourself into the community. You are involving yourself in the community and you are understanding, you are observing the behavior of the people. It is not like that you are from the outside you are observing. No, you are becoming the part of the member, part of the community, then you are observing. That type of researchers are known as ethnography researchers. For example, if we will focusing on the nature of the ethnography, it generally reflects an interpretivist research philosophy and involves inductive and qualitative research approach, because you are going inside, you are becoming the member of the community, and you are trying to identify the new things from that community, whether it is in terms of behavior, language, or some other beliefs. So you remember, this ethnography is reflecting interpretivism, inductive and qualitative research approach. The last one is Archwell. Already existing data, simple, focusing on secondary data, review of literature, existing data. When your study is focusing on existing data and all those things, this type of research is known as Archwell research. This method is particularly suited to historical research, or we can say we can make use of material such as manuscripts, records, books, and all those things. As you see, there is a wide range of choices in terms of research. We have wide range. Wide range means, for example, we have 6 ranges. Yeah. The right choice for your research project will depend largely on your research objective. Please remember, your research objectives, your research aims, your hypothesis will tell you which type of strategy is perfect for you, as well as the choice you make in terms of research philosophy and research approach. Look, these things are linked. Research philosophy, research approach, research strategy. So it will be easy to understand you. If my philosophy is this, then I will go for this. If my research strategy is this, definitely my research approach will be this, and then my research philosophy will be that. So in this way, you have to link all these things. So let us move to the next part, to the next layer. Let us peel out the next layer of our research onion. The 4th layer, that is research choice. This layer helps you to know whether it is fine to combine both qualitative and quantitative methodology, or to use only one methodology. Simple. The choices are here focusing on quantitative and qualitative things. Okay, there are 3, what we can see, the choices in the research onion. What are those? Those are the mono method, mixed method, and multi-method research choices or approaches, we can say. Here researchers are going to choose whether mono method is perfect for its research, or mixed method, or multi-method for its research. This layer is simply about deciding how many data types, whether it is qualitative or quantitative, you will use in your research. How many data types? Here we have 3 options. So let us understand all the 3 so that we can link this research choice with the research strategies. What do you mean by mono method? Mono method means simple, single method. When using this method, you as a researcher require to gather one type of information. That is using either quantitative or qualitative method. Here you can use either quantitative or qualitative. Your research, you cannot combine 2 things here. Choosing to use a mono method means that you will only make use of one data type, either quantitative or qualitative. For example, if you want to conduct a study investigating the community's opinion towards a specific, for we can say, a group of people towards a specific pizza restaurant. So you could make use of qualitative approach only, so that you can analyze participants' view and opinion of the restaurant. Here you are going to analyze the respondents' views and opinion towards the restaurant. That hotel, that restaurant, you are going to analyze the views and the opinions. So it is going to be focusing on the one method, for example, qualitative method. But when we will move towards the next one, that is mixed method. Mixed method means you are going to use both quantitative and qualitative. You are going to take mixed method approach. For example, if we will continue with the above example, you may also want to access the how many respondents from the community or from the group eat specific type of pizza. In the previous, we are going to analyze only to conduct and investigate community opinions. Here we are going to include also the number, how many people, how many respondents are having a specific type of pizza. So for this, what you will do, you will use a survey to collect quantitative data and then analyze the results statistically, producing quantitative results in addition to your qualitative one that we have done in the previous one. So here in this type of research, you are going to mention that my research choice is mixed method, because I am going to use both quantitative and qualitative. So for example, the third one, what will be the third one? Third one will be the multi method. It is last one. What is that? Multi method. Sorry, I am not.
Yeah, your slide is not moving.
Yeah, I forget. That is why.
No issue, it's going very interesting.
Yeah, this was mono, this is mixed, this is multi-method. With the multi-method approach, you will make use of wider range of approaches with more than just one quantitative and one qualitative approach. What does it mean? Simply, we can say both things. Both things. This method is similar, like a mixed method, because it combines the quantitative and qualitative methodology. Although they are similar, but there is still having small differences between mixed and multi-method. While mixed method combines methodology to establish particular set of data, multi-method does not. Then what multi-method is dealing? For example, Philipp has mentioned in 2011, what he mentioned, that mixed method combines methods to create a single data sheet, while multi-method is used where the researcher is divided into segments. When there are different segments, there will be different, what we can say, data sets. Each producing, for each segment, there will be different data sets. For example, if you are conducting a study looking at the archives from the specific culture, for example, you could make use of two qualitative methods and then one additional quantitative method. It is not only one this one. You can make many methods combined, methodologies, not only methods. When you are mixing the things, for example, here in mix one, you are making one quantitative, one qualitative method. But here in the multi, you can make 2-3 qualitative method, one quantitative method. That together is known as multi-method, because you are focusing on different set of data. At the time, we will go for multi-methods. So these are the three, what we can say, research choices: mono, mixed, and multi. So definitely you will choose whether your research choice is mono. If it is quantitative, definitely you will go back to your research strategies, research philosophies, research approach, and you can link your research process. Okay, so let us move to the next one. The fifth layer of our what we can say onion, which is known as the research time horizon. Yeah? Here we are focusing on the time. Describe the required time for the completion of your research project. Okay, this one pretty straightforward. This is pretty straightforward. The time horizon simply describes how many points in the time you plan to collect data. Simple. How many times you have to collect data. That is what the time horizon is telling us. From the point of view of time, we can think of research either as one-time research or continuous research, isn't it? One time, or what we can see the longitudinal research. So we have here two things. One is longitudinal time horizon, and the second one is cross-sectional time horizon. In this, the first one, the case, the research is carried over several time periods, and in the cross-sectional, the data is collected in single time. For example, you are focusing on one group, you are collecting data, that is all. Okay, for example, for this study, you need to collect data over multiple points in longitudinal. You have to collect data in multiple points after some time. For example, perhaps over a week or a month or even a year. So you are collecting data after in different intervals. Such type of research is known as longitudinal research. You would make use of longitudinal time research. The option is highly beneficial when studying changes and progression over a time. You are focusing what are the changes over the time. For example, today you collected data. After 6 months, you are collecting data from the same respondent. So that means you are doing it longitudinal research. On the other hand, we have cross-sectional time horizon. You want to study the language used in a particular group or at a certain point. So you collect data, that is all. You would make use of the cross-sectional time horizon. You need not to identify the changes. When you are not waiting for the change, so you are focusing on one-time data collection, that is known as cross-sectional time horizon. This is why data is collected at one time, so you won't be gathering data to see how the changes are happening. For example, you are focusing on a community, on a group, and you are not focusing on how their language, how their society is developing day by day. No, you are just checking at one time what is happening right now. You are collecting data, that is all. So this is known as cross-sectional. But when you are moving back to the same community, when you are going back to the same, what we can say, group of respondent after 6 months to collect the data again, so that is known as longitudinal, what we can say, research time horizon. So as with all these choices, the nature of your research and your research aim and your research objective are likely determining factors when deciding the time horizon. Again, what is your research objective? What is your research hypothesis? What is your research project? They are going to decide whether you are going for a longitudinal research time horizon or you are going for the cross-sectional, what we can say, research time horizon. So you will also need to consider practical constraints. For example, the amount of time you have available to complete your research. For example, being a student, so you have a limited time. So definitely you have to go like this, because there are some other factors as well that are going to affect your research work, especially in case of dissertation and thesis. So you have a limited time. So definitely you have to go for, you have to decide before going for the longitudinal time horizon. So these are the things that we are going to discuss in research time horizon. So let us move to the next one. Dr. Sarfraz.
Yes, Dr.
Dr. Sarfraz.
Yes, please.
Am I audible?
Yeah,
visible?
Yes.
Okay. So finally, we reach the center of the onion. Finally, we are reaching to the center of the onion, peeling the cover, peeling the layer, and we are entering in the center of the onion. This is where you get down to the real, what we can say, the practicalities of your research to make choices regarding specific techniques and procedures. Here you have to make the decision about the techniques and the procedures. This layer explains how data used to in the research are collected and analyzed. Here we are now focusing on data collection and from whom we are going to collect data. That is what we call as sampling and all those things. So before moving to the next part, let me discuss something about the data and the. So data collected can be primary and secondary data. Primary is direct, the fresh data that you are going to collect directly from the respondents. Or secondary data is the opposite of primary data. Secondary data is indirect data that is already existed, isn't it? Or this layer will also tell us, it will, whether you are going to decide on what data you will collect, what data collection method you will use. For example, you will go for the questionnaire, you will go for the interview schedule, and there are different methods. Which method you are going, that is the thing that you are going to decide here in this last layer. Or you will also decide how you will go about sampling, because there are different sampling techniques and sampling methods. For example, we have probability method and non-probability method. In probability method, we have what we can say simple random sampling method, complex random sampling method. We have stratified random method. We have cluster. On the other side, we have judgmental. We have convenience. We have snowball sampling. So these are the things you have to decide here. Which method I am going to apply? And based on that method, you will link your research approach, your research strategies, and all these things you are going to link here. This layer is also going to determine the type of data analysis you will answer your research question. For example, if you want to find out the impact of one these variables on the other variables, so maybe you may go for the regression. If you want to find out the relationship, so maybe you will go for the correlation. So all these things will be decided here in this techniques and procedure section. What is important to note here is that these techniques and procedure need to align. You have to match these things with all other layers of your research onion. It is not simply that you are going to, because the things should be linked with each other. As I told you, it should be linked with research philosophy, research approach, research strategies, choices, and time horizon. With this, we are what we can say concluding our research onion. So we have 6 things here. So we discussed all the 6. The first one is research philosophy. Research philosophy, there is ontology and epistemology. In ontology and epistemology, or we can say simply positivism, interpretivism, and pragmatism, we have to decide our philosophy. Then in research approach, we have to decide whether it is inductive or deductive. Then research strategies, we have different research strategies, either experimental, research, case study, survey, all those things. Then you have to go for the choices and time horizon, and finally you have to go for data collection method and analysis. Which statistical tool you are going to test your hypothesis? Which statistical tool with the help of which statistical tool you are going to analyze your collected data in order to answer your research questions? Okay, so in addition, we have to get some information about the variables as well. What actually the variable is, because we are going to use different variables in our research. A variable is that thing that varies from one person to another person. It is a characteristic. For example, we are different. What we can say, the students in our class. So their age varies, their gender varies, their education qualification varies, so that it is called variable, that varies from one person to another person. A variable is a characteristic that varies from one individual, one member, one respondent of a given population. Because whenever we are going to conduct a survey or a study, we mostly focus on, I am talking about the social sciences, so we mostly focus on the population. Okay, in a population, we have sample. We are going for the sampling size. We have different techniques for sampling size. For example, when we have a sample size, for example, out of 100, we are going to focus on 40, for example. So those 40 is having the varied characteristics, because they have different, what we can say, the characteristics that varies from one person to another person. So similarly, we have variables that varies from one to another. For example, we have what we can say independent variable, we have dependent variable. These are the basic variables that every researcher at least uses. For example, independent variable means, for example, that varies. An independent variable is a singular characteristic, isn't it? That that the other variables in your experiment cannot change. Independent variable changes to get effect on dependent variable. For example, age is an example of independent variable. Where someone lives, what they eat, how much they exercise are not going to change their age. Isn't it? Age, for example, is independent. Simple. Whether you are exercising, whether you are eating, whatever you are, it will not change your age. Age is age. It is independent. It will not change. Independent variable, however, changes other variables. Simply. For example, if you have independent variable, it has the effects on the other variables. For example, a researcher try to find out whether an independent variable causes other variables to change, and in what way. Whether it is, if we change the independent variable, what will happen to the dependent variable? For example, if we are changing, for example, a price and demand, we are changing price, demand is getting changed good. How much? We are increasing price, demand is decreasing. How much? So these things can be changed, can be identified with the help of independent variable. On the other hand, if we were going to discuss the dependent variable, the dependent variable relies on the change by the other components. It depends always on the independent variable. How much change happen in the independent variable? Accordingly, there will be change in the dependent variable. For example, if we will take the example of grades in an examination, it is a dependent variable. How many grades, the marks you have obtained in your examination, because it depends on different factors, such as your sleep, how much you sleep, how long you study. Okay, so independent variable can influence dependent variable, but dependent variable cannot influence the independent variable. For example, the time you spend on studying can affect the grade of your test, but the grades of your test cannot affect the time you spend on the study. So while analyzing relationship between study objectives, researchers should try to determine what makes the dependent variable change and how much. So when you have grades, so it will depend, for example, how many hours you spend on studying, so it will affect on the grades. If you will sleep more, so definitely there will be effect on grades. So grades are dependent variable on your efforts, on your sleep, and all these things. Social media, what we can say, where you are spending more time. So all these things will be independent variable, but grades are dependent. Grade is depending on these factors. Sleep is not depending on grades. Grade is depending on the. So there are other variables, for example, mediating variables and moderating variables. Or mediating variables are also known as intervening variables. How we are going to define these things? The intervening variables sometimes also called as mediated variables, that researcher uses to explain cause or connection between other study variables. It helps us to understand the cause or connection between independent and dependent variable mostly. They are association. They have association instead of observation. For example, if wealth is independent variable and lifespan is dependent variable, wealth and lifespan is dependent, it depends upon the wealth. For example, the researcher might hypothesize that access to quality healthcare is the intervening variable, is the mediating variable that links wealth and lifespan. Or on the other side, if we are going to discuss moderating variable, or sometimes it is moderator variable, changes the relationship between dependent and variable and independent variable by strengthening or weakening the intervening variable's effect. It strengthens, it affects, it changes the effects of mediating variable. The effect of mediating variable. For example, if you want to find out the relationship between economic status and how frequently people get physical exams from a doctor. For example, doctor, dependent variable, economic status, independent variable. Age is moderating variable. So that relationship might be weaker in younger individuals and stronger in older, as I told you. Those who are young, definitely they are not going to visit more to the doctors. But when you are old, definitely you are going to visit doctor more. So it is affecting simply this moderating variable. It shows the change, the relationship between dependent and independent variable by focusing, by improving or weakening or losing or decreasing the effect of mediating variables. It will take what we can say the complete lecture for discussing all these variables. Here I am just trying to give you an overview of these things. So let us move to the last one. Some measurement scales we will discuss, not taking more time. It will take just 5 to 10 minutes to understand about these measurement scale, because we are going to collect data. For example, you are making different questionnaires. Okay, for in those questionnaires you can use different measurement scales. We have 4 basic measurement scales and that we can use in our research. What are those? The first one is nominal, second one is ordinal, third one is interval, and last one is a ratio scale. Nominal scale means if we will go by its name, it is nominal. Nominal means label. Label means name. Whenever you are going to use any question in your research and you are going to use a name in the answer, in the options, such type of what we can say, and these scales are known as nominal scale. It is non-numeric. Please remember, nominal scale is not a numeric scale. It is a non-numeric scale. For example, gender, male, female. It is nominal scale because we are using names in the options. For example, what we can say, marital status, married, unmarried, and all those things. So these types of scales are known as nominal scales, and these are non-numeric scale. Please remember, non-numeric scale. Here nothing is number one and nothing is number second. Simply here we are focusing on the names with the labels we are using, nothing else. Okay, let us move to the next one, ordinal scale. By the name ordinal means order. Please try to understand. This is the development of nominal scale. One step ahead. Next step. For example, in ordinal scale, name is there. That is all. The first one, name is included there. What is the next thing? Order. They are focusing on order as well. Simple. Again, it is non-numeric. Please remember, it is non-numeric. They are not focusing on the numbers. They are focusing on the name as well as order. I will give an example to understand it clearly. So only one thing you should remember here, it is focusing, it is label. We are not using numeric things here in ordinal scale, but we are focusing on numbers. We are focusing on orders. For example, if there is a race, we are participating in the race. And in the race, we have number 1, number 2, and number 3. That is all. This person is number 1, this is 2nd, this is 3rd. But we are not focusing on the difference between number 1 and number 2, number 2nd and number 3rd. Maybe the first one and second one, the gap between these two is, for example, 5 meters, and the gap between 2nd and 3rd is 50 meters. So, but we are not focusing on the gap. We are focusing on the order. Who became first, who became second, who became 3rd. That is all. For example, one more example I will give. For example, in our research, we are using 5-point Likert scale. For example, strongly agree, agree, not sure, disagree, and strongly disagree. But these are the orders only. Strongly agree is higher than agree, but we don't know how much. The gap, we are not focusing here on gap. We are only focusing on order. The person who is giving a strongly agree and the person who is giving us agree, we does not understand, we does not mean the gap between strongly agree and agree is the same as between strongly disagree and disagree. We don't know how much is the gap, but we are only focusing on the orders here. Name is also there because they are strongly agree. These are all names, happy, unhappy. Okay, but we only focus on the orders here. Let us move to the next one, interval scale. Interval scale is the next step now. The name is already included, order is already included, and there is something new. Please try to understand. The interval is the third one. It is numeric scale. The first two scales are non-numeric. The third one is numeric scale. Numeric scale means here we are using the numbers. We are using the numbers. But there is one important thing you should remember about the scale, that absolute 0 is absent in this scale. Absolute 0 is absent in this scale. What does it mean? 0 does not mean 0 here in this scale. For example, we are mentioning 0. 0 means nothing. but 0 is not nothing in interval scale. 0 is not nothing in interval scale. For example, we are focusing on temperature. Okay, so we are mentioning that we have 10 degrees Celsius temperature. That means we have 10 degrees Celsius temperature. Sometimes we are mentioning that there is 0 degree temperature. Does it mean that there is no temperature? No, 0 is a number here in the interval scale. You should remember all these things. So 0 is absent actually. In other words, if we will discuss interval scale, 0 is absent in interval scale. We are not using 0 as a 0 in interval scale. In interval scale, we are using 0 as a number. 0. That is why in most of the books you will find that absolute 0 is absent. There is no absolute 0. There is no true 0. What does it mean? That means that there is no, the value of 0 is not 0. Value of 0 is a number in interval scale. 10 degree, 20 degree Celsius. The difference between 10 to 20 and 20 to 30 is same. That is why here we are focusing on the gap also, not in the previous scale. Ordinal scale does not focus on the gap between one point to another point. They are only focusing on the order. But here we are focusing on order as well as gap. Because, for example, if we will take the example of our watch, from 1 to 2, there are 10 seconds. 10 minutes, we can say. From 2 to 3, there is again 10. So they are following the same criteria for entire scale. So that is called interval scale. And the last one will be the final, the ratio scale. One more thing for the interval scale. For interval scale, we cannot get this the things. For example, today we have 10 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow we have 10 degrees Celsius. If we are going to add these things, 10 degrees Celsius and 10 degrees Celsius, we cannot get a 20 degrees centigrade, what we can say, day. Can we get? No. These things are not possible in interval scale. You cannot get 10 plus 10 degrees Celsius. We cannot get a 20 degree centigrade, what we can say, a new day. No. But these things are possible in ratio scale. For example, in ratio scale, we have name, we have order, we have gaps. We can add up all these things. For example, height, weight, we have 10 kg, we have 10 kg. Together, we can make 20 kg banana. Oh, sorry, the 20 kg potatoes. Height, we have a piece, what we can say, 10 feet, we have 10 feet. It will become 20 feet. So we can say simple, the ratio scale is the top scale with all the things included. Nominal things, ordinal things, interval things, and ratios also. For example, central tendency can be measured by mode, median, mean, dispersion, standard deviation, coefficient of variation can also be calculated from these things, can be calculated from ratio scale. These things cannot be calculated with the other scales. So with this, thank you so much for being with me, for what I can say, listening this boring lecture. I hope the things will be beneficial to all of you. And thank you so much for joining me. And if you have any comment, any query, any doubt, please let me know. I will try my level best to make you things clear. Thank you so much.
So thank you, Dr. Adil, for your nice lecture. Actually, let me give you one very good review of your lecture. Since there are around 31 students are there, and till the end 31 was there. This is the great things. Nobody has moved for a single minute. So it was a great lecture. So 31 to 21, it is not like that 50 was there or 100 was there, now it become 31 or 30. So all are very much interacted with you. And let me tell you about the things. As a moderator, I can say, and also as a researcher, I can say that your lecture is very clear, concise, interesting, and your great efforts will be saluted by all of us.
Thank
and
you so much.
About that one, I will take questions. If there is any questions, either they can raise their hand or they can ask through the chat box. One question is there by Dr. Shalini Gupta. Want to ask that what is the, if you make it some more clarity about the mediating and moderating variable, it will be more for that one. One question is like that one. First question we'll take.
For example, this mediating and moderating variable means you have dependent and independent variable. Okay, but sometimes you have some mediating things that is also getting affected through the mediating variable. But for example, they are intervening, they are having some effect on your dependency and independency. But the moderating one is having effect on the impact of mediating one. They are not affecting on dependent and independent variable. No, they are having effect on the mediating variable. What mediating variable is having impact, moderating is having effect on that effect. They are not having the impact on either dependent or independent variable. I hope things are clear.
Yeah. Yeah, correct. So there is one Dr. Bashir has raised his hand. Let me say that whether he can able to, let me ask him to unmute himself so that if you want to ask something. Yeah, Dr. Bashir. You can unmute yourself and you can raise your question, or you can write it. There is both the way.
My colleague is also here. Dr. Adil is also here. I want to listen from him as well.
Yeah, let Dr. Bashir. Yeah, Dr. Bashir, please.
Yes, Dr. Bashir.
Yes, Dr. Sarfraz, can you hear me, please?
Yeah,
please. You are clearly audible.
Okay. Thank you. Just, I don't have actually any question. I lately joined you, but just I'm very happy to join you, especially Dr. Sarfraz. He was one of my classmates. I'm really happy today to join you. Just to say hi. Thank you all.
Hi.
Yeah.
May God bless you. May God bless you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, about Dr. Bashir, let me tell you, he is the president of Jigjiga University, and he has completed his MBA with me from Jamia Hamdard. And maybe because of the time difference, this confusion was raised that he joined late. But I will request him to tell other colleague of him and their research scholar to join tomorrow on time. And this will be recorded and we will share with that one. And if Dr. Adil will permit, because many other person will ask that if they will share their PPT or not. So it is totally the copyright of Dr. Adil. If he will allow, then only I can share with that.
Please, you can share.
Yeah. So because meanwhile, in the chat box, they can, for recording, there is no issue. We can share it through YouTube and through that one. About the PPT, I have to ask, and you give the permission so I can share it.
Sure, you can. The students, particularly research students, can also approach me personally. Doesn't matter. Okay. After completing this, you can approach me if you have any doubt. If you need anything, I will be available as well.
Sure. Thank you.
I know being a research scholar, because once upon a time I was also a research scholar, and I know the doubts and things that every research scholar is having. So you can approach me. I will be available through social media. And you can get my contact number as well if you are willing. Whenever you need, you can approach me.
Okay. So now there is one more hand raised. Now it is from Mr. Bipin Kumar Shah. Let him speak.
Please.
Yes.
Dr. Adil and Dr. Sarfraz, first of all, let me compliment both of you for giving us such an enriching session.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Let me start with a small, it has to be taken in a lighter way. All throughout my education career, I felt mathematics is why weak subject, because teacher was not beautiful, you know. But today, both Mr. Dr. Sarfraz and Dr. Adil are very handsome, and Dr. Adil made the subject in a very lighter way. I have studied. Dr. Sarfraz, professor, he is dissertation chair. Of course, he was not there, but we studied 3 topics on research, but never we found such interesting. I'm telling you, it's a.
Thank you so much.
Really, I'm really, what do you say? I don't have words, but you made it very simple. And that is the reason after 4th or 5th slide, I requested Dr. Sarfraz that if there is no issue, please share the slides.
Yeah.
Sure.
My research under his guidance, so it will help me a lot.
Sure.
Huh?
Thank you.
Yeah, this is your property now. You can take it and you can understand. But most important thing is to understand things. That is very important thing.
Okay. So thank you, Mr. Bipin Shah. We will share it, and if there is something more is there for any questions or any other comment, please write on the chat box before we will wind up for this session. And for tomorrow,
I want to listen from Dr. Abid. I don't know why is he?
Dr. Abid is. Let me check if
Is he here.
If he can raise his hand, I can.
Maybe he may be busy.
Yeah, he is there, but no issue. Maybe in the audio issue is there. So
actually, the thing that we cover today, believe me, it will take at least 2 or 3 lectures, so that we can understand them. We can make them clear in detail with good examples as well. Because today I was just trying to give the overview of the things.
Yeah, correct. You are 100% correct, Dr. Adil. I know that
in future we will try to arrange one more what we can say in the webinar, and we will cover the things more in detailed way.
Of course.
Okay.
So by this way, after giving the vote of thanks to Dr. Adil, let me complete for this session. And by tomorrow, you people will come and join it. And still, if you have any questions, we can take it. Even after this one, we can take
Sure.
I can forward it to the Dr. Adil or whoever can give that one. Again, Dr. Bashir has raised his hand. Let me give him the chance for that one. Dr. Bashir is there from Jigjiga Institute, Ethiopia. Yeah, Dr. Bashir.
Yes, Dr. Sarfraz, thank you very much for giving me another chance. Just to request you, can you share me the slides, Doctor, please?
Sure. No issue on that one. And also,
thank you.
There may be because of this time gap or because you are more busy, so you can tell your other colleague to join at 11 o'clock IS Indian Standard Time. Maybe in there it may be 9 o'clock or 8:30 around.
Okay, definitely. Thank you.
Thank you. So if there is no other participants who want to, is there any link for feedback and attendance? No, Dr. Shalini, I will take that one because it is in the recorded form, so I will take for that one. Thank you very much. So by this, I am going to end this session. Thank you very much. Looking forward for tomorrow's session. Have a nice time. Thank you, Dr. Adil.
You are most welcome, sir.